I was 10 years old when I decided I'm going to go to Africa, live with wild animals, and write books about them. Well, everybody laughed. World War II was raging, and Africa was far away. We didn't know much about it. And anyway, I was just a girl, didn't have much money either. So everybody laughed at me. But my mother didn't laugh. And I say this with a reason, because parents are so important, or somebody to support a child in their vision. Even if it's obvious the vision won't happen, to support a child in a vision, I feel is very, very important. So mum just said, if you really want to do this, you're going to have to work terribly hard, take advantage of every opportunity. And if you don't give up, hopefully you find a way. And cutting the long story short, I did, and I got to Gombe, and the chimpanzee study that I began in 1960, the very first person to study chimps in the wild. That study is ongoing today in its 63rd year, and we're still learning new things about these amazing creatures. Oh, it was magic. Mum and I shared a tent, and then when she left, I had it to myself, and it was out under the palm trees, and it was right near the start of where you went up into the forest, and you could hear leopards at night. And sometimes I used to climb up to be near the chimps where they nested, because they nest in a different place every night. And I would sleep out under the moon, under the stars. Those are the best days of my whole life. Out from morning, early dawn, before it was light, back just as it was getting dark. That my one meal a day was the evening. In the morning, I just had maybe half a bit of bread or something. It was magic. In those days, there were buffaloes and leopards. They're gone now, hunted, killed. But back then, they were there. And buffaloes can be quite dangerous. I had to climb a tree once because there were two bull buffaloes and they sort of mock charged. And my big problem was I was up in the tree and they disappeared, but had they gone? Buffaloes can hide. That's what they do when they're hunted. They go around behind the hunters and follow them if they've been wounded, and they can still walk and then attack them. They're very crafty. So I didn't dare come down from the tree in case they were hiding. But after about an hour, I thought, well, they must have gone, and they had. And leopards, well, I sometimes heard them at night when I was sleeping alone up in the hills, and I heard their coughing call. And, well, what could I do? I just pulled a blanket over my head and hoped for the best. You know, I felt that I was meant to be there and the animals wouldn't hurt me. They're so like us. I mean, kissing, embracing, holding hands, swaggering, threatening, using rocks as missiles, using tools. They're like us in so many ways. But one communication which wasn't planned, but I was following David Greybeard, who's the chimp up here behind me with the white beard, and he lost his fear before the others. And I was following him. I thought I'd lost him. I came through a tangle of vegetation. He was sitting, looking back as though waiting for me. And I sat down near him, and there was a ripe red oil nut palm on the ground, which they loved. So I held it out to him on my hand, and he turned his face away. So I put my hand closer. He turned back. He looked directly into my eyes. He reached out. He took and dropped the nut. He really didn't want it, but very gently squeezed my fingers. And that is how chimpanzees reassure each other. So in that moment, we totally communicated in a way of communication that surely precedes our spoken language. We have to realize that animals like us have feelings. Animals like us are individuals, they're personalities. Animals like us are highly intelligent, much more intelligent than people used to think. And indeed, when I first went to Cambridge to get a degree, the professors told me I shouldn't have given the chimpanzees names. That wasn't scientific. They should have had numbers. And I couldn't talk about their personalities, their minds, or their emotions because they said those were unique to us. But that's not true, is it? I'm sure some of you have had a dog or a cat or a rat or some kind of animal as a pet, or you've got to know one really well. You know that's not true. So I'd learned as a child from my dog, my great teacher, Rusty, that of course we're not the only creatures on the planet with personalities, minds, and feelings. And so I won that battle. And now you can study those things in animals. I like to think of biodiversity of a given ecosystem, a forest, a wetland, a prairie, and so on, as a sort of tapestry of life. And in this tapestry, each thread has a role to play in creating the finished picture. It was when I was in the rainforest in Gombe that I came to understand the importance of every single species, no matter how small and seemingly insignificant. So one small species becomes extinct, so what? How could that make a difference? But perhaps it was a major source of food for another species, so then that one also vanishes. Just imagine that every species represents one thread in that beautiful tapestry. And as more and more threads are lost, the tapestry becomes increasingly tattered. And this can lead to ecosystem collapse. And in fact, some scientists are going around saying it's too late, we can't make a difference, we're on a downward trajectory, we've got climate change, we've got loss of biodiversity. And while it's definitely true that we have all these problems, it's not too late. We've got this window of time. But the great thing is that in this window of time, it's desperately important that everybody takes part, that everybody understands that the way you live as an individual can impact the world. Of course it wouldn't if it was just you, but it's not just you. There's more and more and more people around the world understanding that every day that we live, we make an impact on the planet. And also, you know, Joe, I mean, you can help conservation, whatever you do. You can be a teacher, you can be a parent, you can be, you know, you can be somebody who empties dustbins. It doesn't matter. You can still do your bit for conservation by thinking, what do you buy? What do you eat? What do you wear? Did it harm the environment? Was it cruel to animals like factory farms? Can you eat less meat? Because eating lots of meat is totally ruining the planet, maybe more than almost anything else. I can happily say that almost every day I hear messages, I get letters, I get emails, I get phone calls from people who say, joining Roots and Shoots changed my life. So it's these young people and what they're actually, you know, they're rolling up their sleeves and they're making a difference. And they are my greatest reason for hope. Too many people are losing hope today. If we look around at the wars and the hunger and the poverty and the racism and the discrimination, I could go on and on and on. And of course, the loss of biodiversity is huge. But although I could go on talking about all that, I prefer to think that we can get together and we can start making a difference, making the world a better place. So my greatest reason for hope is these young people, because they're taking action all around the world. Well, it was great to see you all, and I'll say bye.
Okay, thanks, Jane.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
And let's bring in all of our group here. Say thank you, a big goodbye. There they are. Thank you so much for everybody joining us live today. Thank you to everybody.
Everybody on here, thank you.
Dr. Jane Goodall, thank you. Have a great rest of the week, everybody. Safe travels to Sunshine. All right, Jane, I'm going to bring in some faces here. Let's get loud in those classrooms. If you want to give Jane a huge goodbye, thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to all of our classrooms on YouTube and Facebook.